years ago, and basically it's like a football head jig that's on a swivel here. You can see right here the hook or the eye that's attached to the head there swivels on the hook. Some of them have split rings, but this is just the general description. It's called a swing head jig because the head on it swings like that. And it's very similar to fishing a football head jig as far as how they bite it and the situations you fish it in. But there's something about a swing head jig that at times it's more appealing than a football head, specifically in the springtime of the year. So we're going to get into that. So before we get into it, let's show you guys how to rig it up and how it looks. Now, most of the time, the lure that you want to use on a swing head jig is some type of a creature bait that has some type of a waggling tail on it. Tommy Biffle made the Biffle bug famous on there with that, but this is the Zoom Z-Craw right here. This is my favorite setup. I use the Z-Craw and the Z-Craw Junior both. Basically what you do, just come through about probably 1/8 of an inch or so. You don't want to come through too much because you don't have a lot of gap there for that to seat, but come through about 1/8 of an inch like this. You'll turn it around, get it lined out, and then usually I'll come all the way through the back side like that, leave the hook exposed, or just barely put it in there like that. So that's the setup on the swing head jig like that. So there's a lot more action than on a football head jig, but that's the basic thing. Okay, the main thing, so it's pretty easy to set up and pretty easy to, get everything ready to go with it. Now let's talk a little bit about how you want to fish it, type of areas you want to look for. Most of the time you want to fish this thing on a fairly stiff rod. So the one that I use is that 7-foot 2-inch Megabass perfect pitch rod. It's sort of a medium heavy, but some type of a 7.5 foot medium heavy rod. And most of the time I use anywhere between 15 to 20 pound test, Seaguard and VizX line. Now the head on it, one of the things about this is I prefer to use a little bit heavier head because this bait is all about bottom contact. You're not hopping the bait. This bait is designed to be dragged right along the bottom. So the head size, I like a little bit heavier head. This is the 7/16. I prefer the 7/16 or the 9/16 for the most part because it allows you to fish it very effectively in a little bit deeper water. It allows you to effectively, if the wind's blowing hard, the bait casts really, really good. If you use a 7/16 or 9/16, you can cast it really good even in 15, 20 mile an hour winds, and you can also keep it on the bottom. But that's the main thing, is just keeping it on the bottom. And it's super easy to fish. Guys, it's a little bit different because you throw it out there. Now, most of the time, like on a football head jig, somebody will throw a football head jig out there and they'll sort of pull it like that and take up the slack, pull it like that and take up the slack. But on the swing head jig, you want to fish it like you're fishing a crankbait, super slow. So